If you ever are looking for a link in this training, it's in there, and we'll have everything you need there. So thank you again for coming. So grateful you're here. I'm Leah with the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. We exist to be a support and political home for people like you who want to face the really atrocious and painful moment we're in with action for justice. So we try to build across movements to advance freedom for the Palestinian people and advance collective liberation. And today we're going to be talking about pickets and stickering and flyering as extremely powerful things we can do in our communities next weekend for the Chevron International Weekend of Action to advance a campaign that could really tip the scales for justice in Palestine and to end the environmental devastation Chevron's responsible for. I'm going to quickly introduce my two colleagues, Celine and Iman, and then and Ramzi, who's presenting today as well, and then we'll get started. Celine, do you mind just introducing yourself real fast?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Celia. I'm with the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights based in Southern California, and I'll pass it to Iman.
Hey y'all, my name is Iman, pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Organizing with the U.S. Campaign.
Awesome. And Ramzi?
Hey everyone, my name is Ramzi. I am a staff organizer with SCIU 1199 New England, a union for healthcare workers in Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Awesome. So grateful to have you. We'll be going through our plan to win, where we can win, the locations you'll take action at, tactics, and then we'll have a commitment form and resources. And I'm going to pass it to Iman just to get started.
Thanks so much, Leah. And thanks to all of you who are joining today. Really appreciate that folks are choosing to spend an hour of their time this weekend with us and kind of taking that next step. I think that this just proves that I think folks are really prepared to continue in this fight, to continue past this moment of ceasefire. We've been demanding this bottom line of the movement, really, for ceasefire to many of us Palestinians is a new demand as we've been working towards trying our best to lobby Congress, to encourage any and all elected officials to demand that the genocide in Gaza begin. It has never been the ceiling for us. And so we've always understood that in order to continue moving forward towards liberation, we need to move past, just calling for a ceasefire and really working hard to ensure that all these sorts of violent institutions, violent mechanisms that Israel has been using are destroyed. And so I think one thing that I think we really want to take away in this moment and ground ourselves in this moment right now is that all of you have done incredible work these last 15 months. As we kind of have now moved towards what seems like the first stage of a ceasefire, our hope is a permanent ceasefire. We know that there's also a lot of work left to do. And for us, I think many folks are kind of asking themselves, okay, like what role does the United States Congress play in this? But also, what are the other institutions that uphold these sorts of violent structures, this violent infrastructure in place that allows Israel to do what it does? And so we've actually been able to take a look at that, and from previous examples of boycott and BDS movement, moments of struggle and all of that, we've been able to tap into the idea that it's not just our elected officials who carry weight in what's happening. It's also corporations. It's also weapons manufacturers. It's also all these other institutions that oftentimes have an economic investment in what is being upheld in Gaza, in the West Bank, all across Palestine. And it is our job to ensure that especially those institutions that are on U.S. soil don't get a chance to earn any sort of economic profit from these sorts of devastating struggles. And so as we talk about Chevron today, I want to ground ourselves in and recognize that we have the right to decide with ourselves that when institutions don't uphold our moral principles, then they won't be earning anything from us, and that they deserve to be called out and named and strongly advocated against for the harm that they've committed, not just in Gaza, but even across so many other climate justice struggles. Again, we have so much to learn from the past, and I think in today's movement webinar, we'll be kind of unfolding and talking a lot about what it is that we're about to be witnessing in relationship to how Chevron kind of plays a role in Israel, with Israel and Palestine, but also recognition that we are sitting on, we're sitting amongst these sorts of corporations that have been very devastating in so many other ways. And so I want to remind ourselves in that moment, remind ourselves that it's a huge opportunity for us to be able to call corporations like Chevron out. And especially as we've already seen, calling out our elected officials has never been enough. I think we've already witnessed just how devastating, when we put things into the hands of those who are supposed to be making the right policy changes, it just doesn't work out in our favor, not every single time. And I think that's a reality here as we're witnessing what's continuing to unfold in Gaza, what's now happening in the West Bank, all of that. So just deeply appreciative for what you are all going to gain out of today. And my hope is that we can really stay committed to ensuring that we continue fighting in whatever way we can for Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Iman. So with that in mind, I just want to answer the logistical questions. We're going to learn how to take action today. And we're actually going for 75 minutes. So I'm sorry for the mistake there. So 2:15 p.m. Eastern, 1:15 Central, 12:15 Mountain Time, 11:15 if you're on the West Coast. And we, in terms of the links, Sarah's putting them in the chat. If you open the slides on your own, you can access every single link in the slides. So we recommend clicking that link, which is uscpr.org/Chevron training slides. All right, so what are we doing today? We are taking all of our momentum, as Iman's saying, and we are strategically putting it towards boycotts and also divestment, so that the many millions of people moved by this moment can make an impact. It has never been enough, as Iman said, to talk to our elected officials. We have to take economic action. So why Chevron? I'm sure a lot of folks have seen really devastating images out of LA, a city where the government made the decision to defund part of the fire department's funding last year, at the same time as millions of tax dollars flow to support genocide in Palestine, which is one image we see from the right. That image was from October 7th, 2023, and we know that devastation continued for over 15 months. So Chevron contributes to both of these atrocities, and that's why we're focused on them today. Chevron in terms of Palestine, Chevron acquired Noble Energy in 2020 to extract fossil gas, which is another term for natural gas, from the largest oil fields that Israel claims in the Eastern Mediterranean called Tamar and Leviathan. These are responsible for almost $500 million of tax revenue to the Israeli government coffers in 1 year alone in 2022. Another way to see this is that Israel's military bases, prisons, and settlements, 70% of the power they're getting is from all of Israel, and the power that flows to those specific entities is all coming from Chevron gas fields. So it would be huge to move Chevron, to shift the economic scales with our collective actions such that Chevron leaves. And what we're hearing from our friends at AFSC who do campaign research is that there's a mass exodus in general of multinationals from Israel's fuel economy. So it would be huge for Chevron to leave because they probably would not be replaced with a similar tier of multinational corporation. Likewise, Chevron has been complicit for many, many decades in environmental devastation, which is why this is a key target. We want to be in joint struggle with others, right? So the intensity of the fires was increased by climate change. This is documented. I was reading reports from universities in LA documenting this impact. Chevron also is a huge responsibility for climate change in general and has a long history of harming people. So you've had people organizing for over a decade. We've had Anti-Chevron Day, which you'll see pictured here, where people in Richmond, California, which has deeply been impacted by Chevron industrial accidents. An accident, I think 12 years ago, harmed 15,000 people who went to the hospital. So people are literally being poisoned by this corporation. And in Ecuador, Chevron dropped a toxic waste that could cause cancer the size of Manhattan in Ecuador and tried to get away with it, right? And efforts are ongoing to hold these corporations accountable. So our work really matters when we target corporations that people around the globe also see as a common enemy. We gain the power to grow, to build together. And so this is why our liberation is intertwined, because our enemies are intertwined, and we really want to bring that forward with the way that we take on this campaign, with a really deep commitment to struggle together. So with that in mind, I want to let you know why Chevron is a winnable target. So we choose targets because we think we can make an impact for Palestine. We choose targets because we think that we can struggle together. And we also choose targets because we can win. So 3 reasons we think we can win. And there's a lot more details in our toolkit. I again want to note uscpr.org/Chevron toolkit. You can put that in the chat again. Has all of this spelled out. So don't stress about getting the links and the resources. They're all here for you. But top line, Chevron is everywhere. I'm going to open this map. We're going to look at this map in the future as well. You can see on this map that there's literally Chevron all over the globe and all across the country, not just gas stations. There are sporting arenas that Chevron, or sporting teams that Chevron is connected to. There are 3 different state fairs in New Mexico, New Mexico, Iowa, and California. The state fair is sponsored by Chevron. Chevron is everywhere. So Chevron is a great target. Chevron, we also think, is winnable. Unlike some of the other major actors that enable the fuel and the weapons that allow genocide to happen, Chevron only entered the Israeli market in 2020. So we think that Chevron could reverse this decision much more easily than a corporation that has been deeply invested for many decades. And lastly, as I already mentioned, the joint struggle piece is key. We know that Palestine could easily get eclipsed by the massive amount of crisis that the Trump administration is going to be generating in communities. But if we're struggling together, then we take on multiple crises together, and we make clear for everyone who we organize with that our struggles are truly intertwined, and that we can keep each other safe across communities, across movements around the globe, right? So we really think that this is a really strong campaign. USCPR is stepping in strongly to this campaign for that reason. I also want to share how we're going to take this on. So we want you as organizers in this campaign. It's fine if you've never run a picket or even been to a picket. It's fine if your involvement has entirely been as a supporter. We're going to take you in the next, 60 more minutes. We're going to move you to be someone who can start to lead. We really believe everyone has that power. And we're going to do that first by finishing going through the strategy. We want you to feel really strong and why we're doing this together. Second, we're going to talk about where we can win. So what that means is that we'll look at those locations in depth, and we'll talk about, okay, what is near me that Chevron owns, what locations are near me, and what is the strategy in that place. All this, again, is spelled out in the toolkit. So don't feel like you need to take detailed notes, and we're actually taking some notes for you. Thank you, Craig. But we will walk you through a rubric. Then we'll talk about 3 different introductory level tactics. These are tactics that are high impact, but relatively low effort, such that we believe you can pull them off by this Friday to Sunday, which is this coming weekend, when we'll have this weekend of action. And lastly, we'll do questions and commitments, and we're going to be sharing a sign-up form. So I'll bring this back up later, but I do want to put it in the chat now that as we get going, we will be taking you through these links. I also just want to note that for folks dropping links, we can make sure to use the HTTPS. We're going to try to drop links that you can click. Lastly, I want to note, I love that Janice said it's your birthday this weekend. Consider having your birthday party at Chevron. We love a noise demo. So thank you all for being here in between all of your commitments, everything. We're very, very grateful for your commitment to move into this world leadership that we really need to create a survivable future. All right, I'm gonna go through one more thing, and then we're gonna dive in really practically to how to take action. So I wanna give you a very small history lesson. This is my favorite thing to cover. So it's so important to me to know that people have done this before and they have won, right? Generally through a combination of grit and tenacity and determination, mass base building, and also creativity, right? We're so much more creative and committed than our opposition, which is fueled by hatred, racism, profit. We have this commitment to something much bigger. So I want to give some examples. We're diving into this campaign today. We don't think that we're going to win this weekend. To answer a question I saw in the chat, and I actually want to direct folks, if you have detailed questions, please go to the Q&A feature at the bottom. Iman and Celine and Sarah will be answering your questions there. We'll probably miss them in the chat. So try that Q&A feature. But I saw one question I want to answer live. So Chevron has existed around the globe for decades. Actually, I think over 100 years as Standard Oil. But Chevron has only been in the Israeli market since 2020. So we do think this is movable, but this is also something that Chevron's making billions of dollars on. So just like these corporations that tens of thousands of people organized to successfully get out of South African apartheid South Africa, we also believe that tens of thousands of people with some time can get Chevron out of the industry of genocide and fueling apartheid. But it will take years. So we just wanted to clarify this. So the Polaroid campaign, this was the first campaign against apartheid South Africa that pushed a major multinational out of South Africa. It was actually led by a couple of really revolutionary committed Black workers based in Boston at the time. And they saw these connections, they felt this connection to their own struggle, and they organized from the inside. And they were successful by 1977, after many years of the corporation trying to sideline their push. Later, we see in the 85 and 86, we see a huge pullout of corporations. This, though, was because of campaigns that ran for over a decade. So, for instance, the Barclays campaign, this is a major bank, particularly in the UK, started in 69, right? So, and it went on for so many years. Well, that's 16 years, I think. 17 years? Wow. These are very long struggles, right? So people who started organizing against Barclays as college students to kick their Barclays chapter, Barclays Bank off their campus, which they did successfully. They might have been, raising a family and, leaders in their community like a couple decades later when they saw this win. So we do need to be in it for the long haul. And I also want to share that some of the same corporations were now struggling against their complicity in genocide. So Barclays is now a major target for their funding of Elbit systems or financing of Elbit systems and other major corporations that build weapons for Israel. So this is a very long haul, but we're in it together. I wanted to show you a few bits of inspiration from the Stop Apartheid, Boycott Shell campaign. So again, multinational corporations extracting fossil fuels have been a threat to indigenous communities and our environment forever. They've also partnered with oppressive regimes forever. So Shell defied an embargo on oil to continue making money in South Africa. And this was during Reagan and Thatcher's reigns. So I just want to put this in perspective, right? Trump is in office. He clearly does not support our vision of a livable future, of anti-racism, of dismantling classism and ableism, disability, and ableism, and dismantling environmental crimes across the globe, right? We have politicians that don't care about the safety of people and the environment. We also had politicians who didn't care about that in the 1980s, who were accelerating imperialism. But in this era, we saw massive wins. I mentioned the summer of 1985. You have, I believe it was dozens of corporations pull out of South Africa. This is really well documented in an amazing documentary called The Bottom Line from a series called Have You Heard from Johannesburg? I cannot recommend this enough. Amazing documentary. It's $5 to rent online. We can include it in the follow-up. So in this summer, despite years of that, I just can't underscore this enough. Reagan won 49 out of 50 states in the Electoral College in 1984. It was a horrifying plunge into conservatism and racism and profiteering by corporations. And yet people-powered campaigns made an impact where the electoral and legislative interventions were not winning, right? So I want to show you just 3 images. We're going to talk about gas station pickets today as one of multiple places to picket and take action. This is, I think this one's from 87. I have all the notes in the slides. We have ordinary people standing at their gas station, turning people away, right? We have kids, right? These are actually from the UK campaign, which was successful in actually reducing Shell's share of the UK fuel market by nearly 7%. So they actually had a huge impact in the UK. Here's another example, right? So folks picketing, folks drawing this direct connection. The same way that we know that Chevron is making money right now off of fuel that they sell that goes straight to Israeli military bases. Shell was doing the same thing for the South African army, and we have this massive campaign. Lastly, I thought this was a cool picture. This is I think it says Turkish Community Center. So community institutions, everyday people who might not only go to those institutions for political action, took those community spaces as a place to take action and make a targeted impact. So the Shell campaign actually did not succeed in moving Shell to drop off apartheid South Africa. It was one of the only campaigns that didn't succeed in the end, but it had massive impact on all the other corporations because it made it such a big deal. So we'll talk about goal setting in a bit, but what I want to drive home is that we don't even need to win this particular campaign for our work to be massively impactful. Because if we can generate the conditions in which corporations understand that it is not profitable to violate human rights, we'll all be safer and the corporations will take note. So we'll talk about this more later, but the Shell campaign is extremely inspirational for its massive involvement and the message it sent that got dozens of other corporations to drop off apartheid South Africa and that got hundreds of colleges to divest. Everyday people's actions just made a massive impact. And we wanted to show you this example to inspire you to know that what you do really has echoes and waves. So I hope everyone's feeling really excited. I want to lastly, want to jump now into a question of what impact are we going to have? Really quickly, we want your help. So we're going to dive into how, but first this why. We want to achieve wins of corporations and community events dropping Chevron. We want to achieve divestment wins, right? Like we saw in California, we've had the very first win in Hayward. They sold off shares in Chevron, right? And we can replicate that. We want to get gas station owners to pledge that they don't want Chevron in the business of apartheid. We'll talk about that. We want to get, we're missing a zero there, 100,000 people to pledge to boycott Chevron. And we're trying to get 5 mainstream media hits. So all of these pieces are things that you're going to actually help us contribute for this international campaign. All right, so I'm going to dive now into how we can win. So we have to take targeted action, right? Remember that slide with all the arrows? This is us figuring out where arrows go. So I want to jump in here. So the first thing to do is I want everyone to open this map. Sarah, if you can make sure it goes in the chat with the like HTTPS so that people can click on it. I'll also actually directly drop it right now. So we want to start in this map, and you're going to open up this map and you're going to type, you're going to zoom in to where you live. So let's say, I'm going to go New Orleans as an example. Actually, no, I'm going to show Houston. Houston has some great examples. So if you zoom into your city, hopefully you'll see a lot of dots. If you don't see dots, we'll talk about the ways you can still have impact, but most people you'll see some kind of dots. And this is where you'll see these different color-coded examples. You can take a click around and be like, ooh, is it a corporate office that I'm seeing? Am I seeing a sponsored venue or event? And you'll click around and you'll see, am I seeing a refinery? So take a look at what you see in your area. If you don't see things in your area, the first thing you're going to want to do is actually jump into, I'm going to put all of these here. Oh, thank you, Kat. So if you don't automatically see a key location on the map, then yes, and I'm seeing Sarah sharing that there's so many gas stations where they are, right? Some places you'll see a lot of options. So if you don't see an immediately applicable option, what's great about Chevron is they also have a consumer line. Chevron sells lubricants for cars. So you can go here and you can search your zip code, and I guarantee you will find, it's loading a little funky on my computer. Here we go. You can pick any of these and you can type in a zip code. Let's say I type in 60202. And I look within 70 miles. You will see that there are literally dozens of places selling Chevron products. So again, don't be afraid if there is not a gas station or a sponsored venue, you can absolutely be effective flying against their consumer line. And we'll get into the details on that in a moment. So start with the map. If you don't see anything on the map, jump to that retailer, and you'll also see something about franchise gas stations, which I'll go to in a moment. So let's go through these options. Oh, and I also want you to open up this form. So this is the take action form. Sorry if you could be so kind to put the take action form and the map in there. This take action form is also available at, I'm forgetting the link. It's uscpr.org/Chevron take action, caps. Sorry, we'll get that in the chat. Sorry. This is where, as we go through this training, we want to recommend you start filling this out. You'll see that the first question is what location you think of taking action at, and to jot down the specific location. When you fill out this form, you'll get the form back to your email in a really neatly formatted way. And you'll also be sending it to us so that me and our coaches like Craig and Sarah can follow up with you and make sure that we promote your action on the map, that we get you any support you need, that you have the resources you need. So as you're going through this, we want to recommend that what you have open is this action form. You can open it on a phone or on your computer, and you can fill it out as we go, and then you'll be done by the time the training is done. So open that up. All right, I'm going to go through these. I'm going to go slightly fast, and I want you to know that in the toolkit, everything I'm about to share is spelled out in the toolkit. So this is literally copy paste. If you miss something, jump right back in there. So first off, what are our options for action? Let's start talking about gas stations. So this we think is a really great starter action. If you go to the map, the black dots you'll see are Chevron corporate-owned locations. So these are owned directly by Chevron. Chevron makes the money directly. There's no like local business owner. We think these are a great place to take action. We have for you a flyer. I'm just going to show this really quickly. So all you have to do is you can print out these flyers, you cut it in quarter sheets, and you can just stand on the sidewalk and start engaging people. We'll go through exactly how to do that. But again, it's a really simple ask. We're asking consumers to boycott Chevron. We can sticker, flyer, and Picket. And we recommend thinking about maintaining a routine presence. So that's step one. Number two, we also, give me one moment. We also have auto stores, as I said. So, okay, there's no corporation, there's no corporate-owned Chevron stores. Anywhere in the country, there are auto stores selling these products. And for these, we have a separate flyer. So I want to make sure you print out the right flyer. It should be pretty clear. You'll see this flyer explains that Chevron owns these lubricants. It explains how your decision to not purchase these products that are complicit in genocide makes a difference. It links the pledge. So similar, but again, we're asking consumers to boycott products rather than gas because it's an auto store. This can be done anywhere in the country, and we really think it matters. Next, this is where it gets more tactically complex. So if you are in any of these states, maybe, sorry if you're able, you can put the list in the chat, but this is mostly the West Coast and the South, running through the Gulf South, and also Alaska and Hawaii. There are franchises. A franchise is a business where the local owner buys Chevron gas exclusively, but they are a local business. The reason this is more complicated is that our target isn't really local businesses, right? Our target is Chevron, the corporation. But here there's a middleman or middle person. So that middle person, we want to actually reach out to them and get them on our side. We're going to be asking them to sign a letter, which you'll see linked here, demanding that Chevron end its business in apartheid Israel and asking them to put up a sign that says, you know, we want Chevron out of apartheid Israel. You know? There's a lot of details here. There's a script that our friends at Oil and Gas Action Network made. And we just really want to emphasize, though, that if you do this approach, it's really critical to try to approach the gas station owners first. So that's why, like, if this was too complex for you, it's okay to go with a different kind of location because franchise-owned gas stations are more complex. And again, the franchise-owned gas stations, you also have to look up separately. So there's a link to look up franchises here. If you are finding a location on this main map, that is a Chevron-owned run thing, and you don't have to worry about anything I just said. But if you decide to target franchises, we really want to emphasize this guidance. We will follow up on email and give you coaching support if you do decide to take this approach. But again, we just want to underscore franchises are owned by small business owners. We want them on our side, and we therefore need to ask them to join us before we just start boycotting their stores. All right, other places. You might have an office building. I'm here in DC. We have their headquarters where Chevron goes and lobbies the government for policies that poison the people and the planet, right? So that's where people are planning to take action this weekend. So you can go back to the map. And again, if you see an office building or a refinery, we also think it's effective to picket there because this is an international day of action. And we want Chevron to see us at all of its locations and to see these demands. And this is also an interesting opportunity because it puts the campaign on the radar of workers, right? And again, we can provide coaching support to think about that. But we really do think that these refineries and office buildings, which are all across the country, are also a great target for this weekend. And we recommend picketing, but things like rallying and marches, stickering are all helpful. Great. So anyways, that's our rundown. Give me one moment to make sure I went through everything. I did also note that there's events that accept sponsorship. There's local governments invested in Chevron. This is a more advanced campaign. So we want to suggest that you work with our coaches if you're going to target one of those campaigns. We absolutely want to go in that direction. We'll actually be going that direction when we loop back for a follow-up call, which we'll invite you to. If you fill out that form, we'll invite you to that on February 12th. And we'll be talking about how do we go from these pickets to actually getting, you know, the Iowa State Fair to drop Chevron, which would be huge, right? We'll be talking about how we do that, but we'll be talking about that more so at the next training, and we can also work with you. So what I want to dive into now is how picketing works for organizing. And I'm going to pass it to Ramzi, who is a real expert on this subject.
Yes. Hey, everybody. So I actually want us to start by watching about 50 seconds of this clip of a recent picket where hospital workers in Rhode Island did an informational picket, which is really a way to threaten the boss before you go on strike during their campaign for a strong contract. And just watch the clip and share your quick thoughts in the chat about what really stands out to you about this picket, how it's organized, what the demands are, what it looks like to you. So I'm going to let you guys do that first.
This morning, nearly 1,500 caregivers at Women and Infants Hospital are picketing this morning in hopes of raising awareness about what they say are illegal labor practices. According to the Caregivers Union, Women and Infants Hospital has been scheduling 16-hour shifts to staff members in a dwindling workforce and have been unwilling to listen to worker concerns. The union voted in October to host the informational strike today. Now, that picket started just moments ago at 6 a.m. a.m. We do have our crew out there right now. This is a live look at what is happening right now. You can see dozens of workers there with flags saying solidarity as they circle the area outside of the hospital. This, again, just the initial response. This started 7 minutes ago. Some of them even out there with what appears to be their children in a stroller. We did see a stroller. We didn't see a child, but this is something that they are taking very seriously out this morning, again, in hopes of raising awareness about what they say are illegal labor practices. According to the Caregivers Union, the hospital.
Okay, I'm already seeing some great thoughts in the chat. Bold visuals, right? It's something that really pops for the public, for the media that's walking by. They're showing a united presence. And somebody mentioned the stroller, right? One of these workers took it so seriously that they brought their kids with them at 6 a.m. Other thoughts, other folks that want to, I see the flags really making a loud presence with their union flags out there. So these are great thoughts, right? And all of these are very important to, what you want to accomplish when you're organizing a picket. But I also want to point out something that you really can't see in the video, which is a fundamental principle. So what went behind this picket was that a large majority of the hospital workers at that hospital, 1,500 workers, nurses, CNAs, transport aides, dietary workers, came together as a single block to create a crisis for the hospital bosses who were trying to stiff them on pay and staffing. That was not easy, right? Because when we found those workers, it wasn't like the vast majority of them were already taking action, were already involved. In fact, probably only about a third of them were. They had to organize, and that meant really challenging workers to take leadership in their own liberation and getting justice from that hospital. And that's really the main takeaway here, is that if we're going to grow the numbers of people that we need to make an example of Chevron, to be involved in this struggle, to get Chevron to end its complicity in Palestinian genocide, we have to organize folks who are not already involved. And that's a skill that really takes practice and a commitment to learn. So that's how we create the conditions to be able to show, that kind of unity that those hospital workers did in November of 2024, and they won. They got the hospital to move from offering no raises across the board to 17% raises for those workers. So I'll just go ahead and pass it back to Leah.
Wow, y'all, I think that's like worthy of a little chat celebration. If you want to throw some love to Ramzi, this is a beautiful example. Ordinary people can do so much when we take collective strategic action, right? So with that in mind, we are going to jump right in to how we do this. As we're doing this next section, I want to highly recommend opening up our form again. We want to suggest just filling this out right now, because we're getting some detailed questions, and we want to say we would love to work with you one-on-one about strategy questions in your area. If you submit the form, we're going to be texting, calling, emailing all of you to make sure that you have what you need. So open up this form if you haven't yet. This is like your checklist for this training, and we're going to dive in. All right. So we're going to start with pickets, and then we'll do a little bit about flyering and stickering later. And what we want to do is continuing with Ramzi's offering of like, let's look at what we're seeing, because we know a lot, right? Many of us have been doing organizing for a long time. And Selena's going to give voice to the things she's seeing in the chat. So I want to ask you, for starters, as you're thinking about what your picket might look like, if you're going to plan a picket, what are the things you see in this photo? What's happening? There's a lot happening in this photo, right? What are the things you're seeing? Put them in the chat, and Selena will give voice to some of it.
We're seeing yellow, bright colors for the signs, multiple heights of banners to attract attention, huge vertical signs facing cars, the signs that say why we're there, kafiyas, traffic passing by. That's a good catch, like the time of day that this is happening. large visual presence, bold Palestinian maps. Picketers are highly visible and holding multiple kinds of signs. A lot on the signage and different text sizes for easy reading, making this unavoidable. So publicity is strong, clear messaging, connecting Chevron, like visuals connecting Chevron to Palestine. That's really good. Red and green signage for Palestine. Someone saying a musician. Some people are seated. Colors to contrast with Chevron colors, and some signs using the same colors as Chevron, and they're right in front of the Chevron sign. This is a lot, yeah. May need public space to accommodate picketers and a good-sized group.
Let's go to the next one. That was great. I'm so glad someone spotted the musician. That was my favorite part. And I also want to point out, I love that someone spotted the seating. So we'll share a checklist afterwards, but things like bringing a few chairs to include people who need to sit is great. All right, here's another picket. This is of the Puma campaign, which won. They forcefully got Puma to drop the Israel soccer team. What are we seeing here? Maybe new things we didn't see last time.
Chalk art.
Yes.
Yeah, washable chalk. Banners that block their store, bigger banners. Body bags. Blocking entrance, clothes to represent bodies. Yeah, there's that. Spanish. Signs are beautiful and big. Line of protesters for visibility street side. Nothing specifically on banners regarding Puma, but there's a larger, more organized presence, Palestine flag, a boombox, banners with clear messaging. And there's other businesses around as well, blocking all entries, making clear connections to Palestine, saying that the people of Boston stand with Palestine. And the body bags are really standing out to people. I'm seeing multiple comments on this. Yellow vests, maybe a de-escalator. Bannering on, let's see, sorry, all the people are on the sidewalk. Questions about permits and yeah, how people are organizing this.
I love it. And I want to say, I see some questions about legality of chalk permits. This is the kind of thing where, again, our coaches will work with you. It's a bit location dependent, but I can say as someone who ran a picket a few weeks ago in a place that we were worried about the presence of police and things like this, it was a non-issue. So generally, there's a lot that you can do on the public sidewalk to demonstrate your freedom of speech. All right, I want to show you one more. We're going to do just a brief part of this, which is Adala, New York, which is a cultural boycott organization that did a ton of work, especially in the 2010s. You can see I want to really emphasize here somebody handing out flyers and resources. So they would host these big pickets and they would put a lot of emphasis on getting flyers into people's hands. And I want to show you a small bit because I just think this is so priceless and could really get us thinking about what we can do, if not for next weekend, in the long run. So I'm going to share this video. We're just going to watch a small piece of it. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for coming and being here to hear the glorious sound of the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra. Thank you. Now everyone knows tonight is not just about hearing glorious music. No, tonight the real purpose is to promote Israel's sweeter, eliter side. Yes, thank you. Oh, people are so tired of hearing about the atrocities supposedly committed by our great nation. No, that's why the Foreign Ministry introduced Brand Israel in 2006. Yes, Israel, the only way Israel can gain the support of the entire world is if people don't just think of us as a country of fighting, a country that builds settlements, a country that displaces Palestinians, engages in human rights abuses, builds an apartheid wall. No, but rather think of the cultural achievements. Yes, thank you. Let us begin. Yes, beautiful. No one can remember apartheid because there's art. Yes. Oh, yes. Play over we have some intruders.
When I was 11, I was a student at the Gaza Music School. In December 2008, the Israeli army dropped bombs in our
They
school.
can't remember Gaza.
Luckily, we weren't inside yet because the building and all the instruments were destroyed.
Louder. No. Drowned out the massacres. Yes. Louder. Yes. Ah, gorgeous. Whitewash it. Ah, yes. Ah, keep going. Don't tell. Yes. Apartheid needs us. It needs us. Yes. Louder. Yes. Softer.
But you get the idea of a lot of use of parody. And I want to also note that what they also did is they had a whole band play, which again, yeah. So there's a lot more where this came from, but I just want to really let people know, like, picketing is something you can do so much with. And we really want to make sure that you feel inspired to like really play with this medium, especially if you start doing weekly pickets or monthly pickets. So I hope folks enjoyed. We'll put some notes in the chat. I saw people also mentioned ACT UP New York, which is a great example of creative action. And we can also list Adala New York, which has incredible examples. All right. So we're not going to go through this, but everything you just said and more is on this Picket packing list, which is also in the toolkit. And with that said, and there's also, I want to make sure it's really clear again, there's those two different versions of the flyers. These are also both in the toolkit. They're both in these slides. All right, so I'm going to pass it now to Celine to talk about the roles that we can take.
Yeah, I think like obviously a part of all of the things that we've been seeing is that there's power in numbers. So all of the examples have shown a lot of people or like solid organized groups of people. So just some tips in thinking about what roles you can identify when you're planning your actions, whether it's stickering or a picket. Number one is outreach. So definitely outreach to people, send them texts, send them emails, announce your action at community meetings that are happening leading up to your event, make phone calls and add your action to the national map, which is linked here. Also identify a social media lead. I think this is really important, like having media visibility, social media visibility, making sure you're posting the action announcement on social media, and also like, maybe live streaming it, having people be uploading pictures and videos during it. Things like that are always really helpful. Supplies lead. This is always important to make sure logistics is set, make or print your signs, banners, and flyers. And it's good to actually assign this role so that there's someone like designated for any of these roles. Someone's bottom lining, someone's making sure that these things are being carried out. A check-in and check-out lead. So when new people arrive, approach them to welcome them and get their name and contact info, or check them off a printed out registration sheet, and make sure to contact people after. So follow-up is a major part of organizing that's just as important as like the action itself, just making sure you're following up with people who came, especially people who came for the first time to something, and asking how they felt about it, if they'd like to come to a next meeting, if they'd like to come to the next action, because this is how you're actually bringing people in to your organizing and to your work. And then also like chant leads, people who can like keep the energy up, people who can, try things like sign tapping, but also lead chants, sing like protest songs when appropriate, things like this. Like there's always people that are going to need to be keeping momentum and energy high, especially if you're out there for a long time. So just to say that roles are really important, like you can have a really well-organized group come out, but the most organized group also has like specific roles for people that allow them to like, just allow you to make sure that the things that you need are being implemented. You can go to the next slide. And just around like, just some like basic principles, I think for when we're talking to people, when we're going to outreach to them, going to community meetings in advance of your actions to invite people, like just some basic principles, I think is that just remember that I think it's important for us to be leading with relationships first. So relationships and building, being like humble, listening to people. We're like building from below. We want to be led by people with the greatest stake in ending oppression. We want to also be like mindful of how we're interacting with people. So we want to move with humility. We want to move with discipline. We want to move with patience. We want to be listening to people. And the only way you can really develop a base is if you can build relationships, and that requires, that you start when you want to get someone involved. it's more effective often to lead with relationships before politics, because you get to better understand where the person is coming from. You get to better understand their interests and how you can connect what you're doing as an organizer with the interests that they have. And we're also committed to revolution, not reform. Like, we're committed, but that also requires us engaging people and meeting them where they're at, so that we can, like, shift things and move people in the direction that we want to move them. And the other piece about organizing is what I said earlier about follow-up. You can have a touch point with somebody and build a relationship with them, but the only way you can actually grow your organizing, including growing your own organization or your own coalition, is if you engage people in a continuous way. So consistently engage people, consistently follow up with people. If you're bringing people into your actions, or you meet people who come, make sure you're following up with them. And just to flag that, this stuff is like, it requires flexibility and patience, and it also requires time. Like, there's time put into building relationships and following up with people and making sure that they feel good about their role in your organizing. So just wanted to add those things here and remind everyone to check out the action form, so that you can think about like your own goals, and then also feel free to reach out if you want one-on-one support and coaching support. We can support you all with your own actions. And I'll pass it back to Leah, I think.
Awesome, thank you. So we're nearing the end of our training, and we're getting really close to you being ready to getting started on action planning. I want to again lift up the take action form. Sorry, if you don't mind one more time putting this in the chat. So we've talked about our locations. We've talked about the tactics we're thinking about. We talked about those roles. You can think about, do I need someone? Can I do this role? Do I have someone in mind? And lastly, we're now talking about goals. This last number 4, the last piece is around goals. Sorry, I'm realizing there's a mistake in this form too that I'll fix in a moment. So goal setting. So thinking like an organizer. Again, we're so grateful to have everyone moving up into this work, because we really want you to know that like it's an art, it's not science. And you probably have a lot of experience going to things, just like we did looking at those pickets and y'all pulling out such good insights. This might be simpler than you think, is what I'm saying. So there's 2 threads of our goal setting for this campaign. If we're gonna get to those big goals I shared at the beginning, where we're getting media hits and we're getting divestment and we're getting sponsorships dropped, it starts with the tiny little goals you set for your particular picket. So there's 2 threads. One is about impacting Chevron, which you could also see as material goals. So concretely, we want to suggest how many consumers can we turn away as a really concrete goal there if you're doing a picket at a consumer location, like a gas station or at AutoZone against the lubricants, right? We also can work with you and coaches, and there's guidance in the toolkit if you're doing a different kind of picket, right? Like if you are picketing in front of a Chevron HQ, maybe your goal is we want to talk to or hand flyers to, half of the people going in the building, right? But this is like, who are you engaging? How are you making material impact? The second thread is about growing the movement for Palestine. We call these people goals in our organizing framework. So this is like, how many people can you activate to volunteer, right? Can you build their skills? Jumping back to those roles. If someone takes on a role for the very first time, my very first role, I always tell people with Students of Justice in Palestine was I sent the weekly emails with our updated location, right? And I was very proud to have that role, right? And having someone be the checkout person or the person bringing the signs or the hot chocolate, it really matters. Like, it's so much better to get 3 people to do it with you than to do it all yourself. That's really how we win for Palestine and for the environment. So with this in mind, you can write some of your really initial ideas for goals. Again, I want to emphasize that this take action form, this is a brainstorming resource. And at the end, you can check the box on what support you want. So if you have questions not getting answered, simply jump into this form and we're going to follow up with you tomorrow and Tuesday. So next, I want to pass it to Ramsey is going to educate us about how do we get people to plug in.
Yes, and you may have noticed me nodding very aggressively over the last couple of speakers, because I think really I'm just going to sum up what has already been said before around a really key principle for getting folks who are not already involved to be ready to take action. And in the labor movement, we use the organizing conversation. One of the things I just want to start by asking all of you is, why did you organize to come onto this call to be part of the struggle for Palestinian freedom and against apartheid and genocide. And if you don't mind sharing your quick thoughts in the chat, just around why did you organize to be part of this effort? Thank you. I'm seeing to stop feeling helpless. I'm sure a lot of folks have also felt the same way. Because you're Palestinian, to be united, to end the genocide, to move from reactionary. There are a lot of amazing things that are coming into the chat around this. For me, it also has to do with my family background, being Lebanese. My grandfather was killed by an Israeli cluster bomb, despite us being in a more privileged position. And now being part of the labor movement, I understand that we can't free ourselves without ending the oppression of Palestinians. And there are so many other reasons that folks are putting in the chat. The one thing that I want you guys to take away when it comes to why do people organize here? Why do other people get involved? It could be any number of reasons, right? A lot of the things that are shared here, it could be seeing their own oppression and what Israel is doing to Palestinian. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's family ties. If folks are more conservative, maybe it has to do with how their tax dollars are being spent. In order to move somebody into action, you have to understand why that's important to them, to that person, right? You're all here because this is important to you. And the organizing conversation is the tool that we use to understand what is somebody's core value, what is important to that person, and how do we connect action against Chevron for its complicity in the genocide of Palestinians to that person's core values. Does that make sense to folks? Do folks, does that sound like, it could work to grow the folks that are involved? Whatever tactics you decide to use, the targets that you have in this campaign over the next weekend, right? Okay. And I'm also loving that folks are sharing ideas in the chat about how to actually get this going. So there are more specific techniques to learn about the organizing conversation. Those of you who have done labor organizing or community organizing, you might know concepts like the 6-step conversation. I think all of you having a commitment to practicing and learning those techniques and applying them to building out your base of support wherever you're organizing and targeting Chevron is critical, but you don't have to wait to start having those conversations now. And as Leah said, filling out that form with your ideas, and also, why don't we just think about right now? Can you think of specific people that you want to talk to and recruit to be part of your team? Those roles that Celine was describing, in order to organize that action next weekend. And once you think of those people, go ahead and share the number of folks that you're willing to talk to before next weekend, because we know that we can't do this alone, right? I'm seeing that folks are getting ready to connect with each other here. Somebody who's willing to talk to 3 to 4 people, 5 people, sharing with family. That's incredibly important. At least 50 people. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys this. Are you ready to get together with those folks before next weekend and recruit them into this effort to take action? And think of a date, think of a time to actually follow up with them, and let's get this thing going. Okay, awesome. I love that.
I actually wonder, I wanted to ask you, based on what I'm seeing in the chat, what would you say to someone who's like, I've never asked this person to take action before, or I've never seen them do something political before? Because I know people are thinking of a lot of neighbors they want to reach out to, but they're not sure if that neighbor is willing to take this step. How do you have that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first, I don't want to understate how important it is that folks are actually willing to talk to neighbors, to folks that maybe even have never thought about this before. The willingness to do that is the first step. It's critical to actually winning. And a lot of the time, folks who are really well-meaning, who are activists, don't actually make that commitment. So that's very important. And I think it's difficult to get deep into some of the techniques around how to have that conversation with folks. I would say one of the fundamental principles is to approach those folks with curiosity. Start by letting them know why you're talking to them. What is this about? You're taking action against a company that's both hurting our well-being here in our communities and supporting a genocide, right? And get curious about what matters to that person that you're talking to. I think going back to what Celine was saying, if you can show that you're really willing to build a relationship, to understand what your neighbors care about, what's important to them in their communities, in their lives, and then really talk to them about why taking action is important to those values, that gives you the best chance to really bring them into the fold. And I would say, we are here as a resource, the folks on this call, the coaches. That's also what we're here for, to sort of reach out to us around, do you want to practice having those conversations? Trainings that may come up in order to learn some more deep techniques around these things. So just know that you're not alone as well in actually going and having those conversations. But I would say that the fundamental principle, be really curious about the people that you're talking to and genuinely try to get to know what they care about in order to connect with them on what you're trying to do for Palestinian freedom. Does that make sense to folks?
This is great. It's really powerful to see how this is resonating. I just want to say, like, what y'all are doing is not small, right? We're learning to organize right now, and that unlocks like a whole world of possibility for the work that we do. Great. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about organizing conversations, Ramsey?
I will leave it there, but just to say that I'm really excited to see the energy from folks on this call around really taking leadership and bringing members of their community to make Chevron pay for its complicity in genocide.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So we're getting to near the end, and what we're going to do now is give some more basic tips about flyering and stickering. And then we're going to actually give some space for questions. So if you have a question you want answered live, please do put it in the Q&A. And me and Ramsey and Celine and Iman will try to answer a few questions. It looks like we'll have time before 15 minutes after the hour. But for starters, I'll pass to Iman.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Thanks, Ramsey. And thanks to this incredibly engaging chat. People are so interested, and it makes me so happy to see so many people asking just the right questions and like really pushing us and like making sure that we're also doing our best as we continue navigating this work. So one thing that I definitely felt from some folks in the chat is that they want to be able to do things that might be a little bit easier. I know that folks have full-time jobs. We've got a lot going on. Maybe we want to just kind of step in and do our best after we've just learned all this, incredible amount of knowledge here from Leah and everyone else who's been on this part of this webinar. And we just want to take action. We feel compelled enough to do that. And so as part of that, we need to think about the ways in which we can, access like really immediate action steps. And fortunately for us, with so much happening around what's been going on in Israel, it's like there are just so many ways in which we know that we can learn from folks. And so as part of that, we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of just how things like stickering and flyering or even digital action tools could be some of the easiest ways and people can get more involved in this type of work. Let's talk about stickering. I live in a really small, I used to live in DC, but I live now in a really small upstate New York city. I take a walk every single day in the same neighborhood. And every time I go out and I see something, I see what I've been seeing lately are actually, Israeli propaganda stickers sitting on all the different electric poles around the city. I want to be very honest with you. It captures my attention every single time. And whether or not I choose to take them down is something that I choose to do. You don't have to necessarily take something down you don't agree with, but I just, due to the fact that it's a small town, it's not often you see stickers in those sorts of spaces. For me, the fact that someone went around and put stickers in there was actually like quite influential. For me, while it was not necessarily something that engaged my attention further so that I could, learn more about a struggle, of course, it did kind of rise enough tension within myself to be able to understand that there is actually a lot of power in this sorts of visuals, on someone's everyday walk, especially in smaller cities. And so it got me thinking to the fact that, again, one of the things that I think many of us come from, a lot of us come from like smaller cities. There's actually like a lot of power in putting up stickers in spaces around our neighborhoods where we walk, where folks are, kind of just taking a walk down to the beach, a walk down to the lake, whatever it is that you're kind of doing, and the intention that it brings out in people. And so as part of that, we want to make sure that people understand just how important and how influential stickers really, really are. So not me saying that I've learned from Zionists, but here I am saying that there is an opportunity for us to also kind of use a tactic here that's actually really quite easy for us so that we can, put up as many things in front of people's faces. Stickering is actually quite a cost-effective, thing. You can even do it while you're on your own walk, all those sorts of things. And it's one of the things that we want to encourage folks to take on. If you don't have all the time to invest in the week of action or any other ways, maybe stickering is kind of one of the ways in which you want to get involved. There's a link here about learning about the history of stickers and activism if you've never done it. Maybe you've done it on other issues, but we encourage folks to take some time to learn about it. But we really do also want to make sure that people understand just how valuable this really is, because it does catch people's attention. And if, for instance, you do go around putting out Chevron stickers, there's a reality that you are going to educate a lot of people on their daily walks as well. Flyering has a very similar response here. I think that one thing that we want to acknowledge is that, again, for us, and what we want to provide to you is making sure that this is a campaign that you feel like you can get involved with immediately. And so as part of, again, making sure that things are accessible, we've actually there's a list of, we've worked with folks who have created a list of flyers and different fact sheets that you can post around and hand out to people, both to use as an educational tool and to kind of just strike a conversation with people. How often have you received a flyer for something that maybe you didn't know anything about? But it kind of struck your attention just due to maybe some sort of like very alarming words on the page or whatever it is, something that caught your attention that allowed you to be able to kind of engage further in some work. So we wanted to kind of offer up flyering as a tactic as well, because we think it's also extremely valuable, whether it's through handing and having a conversation with people, maybe visiting certain stores and different businesses in your own cities, and really striking up a conversation both to see whether or not those business owners maybe don't even know what role Chevron plays when it comes to Palestine or climate justice issues or whatever else is going on. But it's actually a really great way of being able to bring awareness both to these business owners and kind of just checking in with other folks to see if these sorts of visuals can really help influence people kind of engaging further and taking a step further. While they may not have attended this webinar, there's an opportunity for us and kind of just person-to-person interaction to really strike up a conversation around how important this is. So I think one of the things is we know that it's not always easy to go out and do these sorts of things, especially when it comes to flyering. Sometimes it could strike a chord in people, as we want people to also engage in it quite safely. So if something just doesn't seem right, you can step away. You don't necessarily have to force your way into flyering and providing a flyer to someone. But there are also incredible opportunities that come out of these sorts of things where people actually learn quite a lot from one another around what's to come.
Thank you so much, Iman. I really hope the biggest thing folks feel from this is that a million tiny actions from, 10,000 dedicated people really does add up to like moving the boulder that is imperialist, capitalist, racist systems that are putting us all down, right? Like your tiny action matters when it's part of a global targeted campaign. And that's why we're so grateful that you're here today. So I want to say, first off, already 27 people have filled out the form saying they're ready to plan an action. Thank you, all of you. I'm sure some of you are still filling yours out as we go through this training. Please fill that out. I'm going to, right after this, just shoot a quick email to everyone who fills out that form with the basic resources in case you were having trouble clicking links. Then I'll be following up tomorrow. Me and Craig and Sarah and a couple others from our coaching team will be doing one-on-one follow-up to really make sure you get the support you need. So please do fill that out. Again, that's this form here. I'm going to put in the chat I already did put in the chat this map and this form. So one more thing I want to emphasize is if you are like, I can't do something by this weekend, but I want to plug in. A perfect thing to do then is to try to plug into other people's actions. There's a few on the map now and a lot more coming. We also want you to put your action on the map. So you can see from this map here, which is in the chat, that there's already actions populating around the country, and there'll be more to come in the next couple of days. So please do connect with others to this map. At the bottom of this page, you can click to host, and you can put up your picket or flyering or stickering and put this up there. You can put up basic contact info that will be sent just to people who RSVP for the event. So obviously be thoughtful about your own security. We recommend like setting up a generic email address to receive people like this, but you can get people out in the world to take action. So that in mind, we've got 7 minutes left, and we just want to run through really quick action items, and then we're going to take a couple questions. So please do put stuff in the Q&A, and I'll answer a couple things live. So real quick, the take action form again, uscpr.org/Chevron take action, all caps. We really want to hear from you. I see 32 people now. Thank you. Also feel free to fill it out twice if you forgot something. But that's one of the main ways that we'll know who wants support. So fill that out if you want support. I'll also put my email in the chat, but again, it's a lot easier for us to connect with you if you're all in one doc. Other things I want to point out, if you are watching this training, but you actually are still deciding what campaign to plug into, I wanted to just share a basic guidance about 3 key campaigns that are happening across the country. You can learn more here. I also want you to know, again, there's this toolkit. It's all laid out there. If you see things missing, let us know. I want to let you know that I just added a chant sheet to the toolkit. So again, we're really trying to make this easy for you. There's a checklist for the pickets, and we've also just made this chant sheet for you. So you can just print this out. Like we really want to put all of our reins and skills together. Check out this toolkit. A lot of what you're looking for might be in there. This is a public resource. Send it to your friends. And I also want you to know that if you're looking at other targets or want to think longer term, we have a more advanced toolkit about how to target corporations. And we also have a toolkit if you're looking for more intro level actions. This is our intro level toolkit, constantly updated by our wonderful comms director, Kat, who's on this call, to really get these things across. So that's the end of our formal training. I want to take these last 5 minutes. I'm going to put the toolkit up again as a reminder that this toolkit is here. I want to just answer a few questions really quickly, and I'll probably be asking our panelists to chime in, and then we'll wrap up. So one question I'm seeing is, I'm low income and don't have much access to transportation other than going on foot. How do we remedy this? What actions can we take? Panelists, does anyone have an answer to that question? If you're low income and can't travel far, what can you do? I want to first offer that we didn't go through it in this training, but if you follow USCPR on social media or sign up for our list or just fill out the form, we'll make sure that you get virtual actions to take, because we will be using Twitter and other tools on Friday. So absolutely things you can do from home, but do y'all have ideas of things we can do in person if you can only really travel on foot through your neighborhood? The panel might be busy, so I'll answer this question. Which is to say, I saw someone brought up wheat pasting. Really recommend looking up what wheat pasting is. We didn't go into depth on this training, but it's actually my favorite way to spread the word about organizing causes. With just flour and water, you can make a really effective but safe, biodegradable, environmentally friendly glue. And then with a printer, which most places, the library is a great place to print, you can print out the same flyers and resources we're providing, and you can paste them. Like in DC, it's actually legal to paste on electric boxes, and you can make like your own little museum. And I'm just amazed how many people see those things. Like we've done tracked like stickers, and you really see that actually like dozens or hundreds of people will see what you put up. So if you're limited to your neighborhood, I want to recommend wheat pasting. I also want to recommend stickering, and I want to recommend following USCPR on any social media platform. You'll see digital actions which you can take from home, which really matter. In this day and age, most people are learning about Palestine from their devices, from their social media, and we want to be a force for inviting our people in. So that's my answer for that. I also see a question about climate activists. I want to answer this question. So actually, there's been a lot of dedication from the climate movement on this. Specifically, Oil and Gas Action Network, which is a really cool organization. I'll drop their link in the chat. They're really wonderful. They created that really powerful map that you saw. They're a lot like USCPR is the sense I get, but for the climate movement. And they've been making maps. They made the script and the training about approaching gas station owners. They've been really, really showing up. And I know that in my local area, Sunrise is getting really involved. So I know that Sunrise chapters are following this. I know that Oil and Gas Action Network is a major force. And there's also a lot of comms professionals from the climate movement supporting this work. That said, I think this campaign is just getting started. And it's absolutely a great idea to reach out to 350.org, to reach out to Sunrise, reach out to whatever environmental justice, especially people targeting environmental racism and like the structures of violence generated by these systems. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of shared experience and resonance there. Let me see other questions. Let's see. I want to emphasize that a couple of questions coming up. I want to emphasize that it's really critical that when we do this work, we are coming from that intersectional lens. So I just want to go over this based on questions in the chat. When we show up with commitment to environmental justice, that means we're resisting all forms of racism. That means we're resisting the kind of systems of profit that are abusing workers. That means that we care about things like Trump's ICE raid threats, and we care about the well-being of our neighbors, right? And this is why we emphasize with the franchise owners to approach them, because these are often immigrant-owned businesses. We really want to reach people and be like, we're with you, right? And that's why you'll see that all of our messaging, you can look at USCPR's broader resources, because I see some questions about this. If you want resources on how are we resisting Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Blackness, these are really key systems of violence that are at play in the system of colonizing Palestine and the system of poisoning the planet and people, right? So I just want to emphasize that top line. We're not going to go into it, but our website is all about this collective liberation frame. And when you're doing this work, always be asking yourself, who in my community is impacted by this? Who's experienced oppression that might resonate with the oppression of the Palestinian people, and plug them in. So I just want to close on that note. And the last thing I want to do is just to emphasize, I see people asking about international work. So this is an international campaign. If you're interested, but you're not in the US, we focus on the US, but we are working with people around the globe. So please fill out the same form and just put a note anywhere on the form where you're located, and we'll be sending you to the right person. This work is global. It's going to take action from thousands and millions of us around the globe. And there absolutely is a way that you can you can target Chevron from your home, from your neighborhood. So I just want to say thank you again for being here. Really, really appreciate the creativity, the commitment, the incredibly active chat. We already have over 50 folks committed to take action just from this training, which is stunning and fantastic. The last day of action had 15 actions. With y'all's help, we can be quadrupling how much action is happening on this campaign. So thank you all again. Power to you, power to the people. Make sure to take care of yourselves and rest as well. And we will be there. We'll be reaching out to you tomorrow. And I'll be sending links along right now to get the basics. Thank you again, everyone. Gratitude and power to you. I'm going to leave it open just for a minute for folks to grab links from the chat, and then we'll be closing out. Awesome. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye. And good luck in the streets. Take care.